Welcome to the Y Generation, the only place on Earth where millennials' thoughts on society actually matter. We're filled with lols, facts, rants, jokes and opinions. We're like your Facebook newsfeed, but with slightly less cats. Today I'm here with James, a journo student who already writes for Western Sydney Access.
Oh, Access, you're Western.
Zara, a medical science student who plans to volunteer in third world countries and apparently has a distinctive laugh.
And if you're lucky enough, you might hear it tonight.
Jade, a personal trainer who dabbles in modelling and politics. And Scott, who one day dreams of being a successful ad creative.
Really?
How about a round of applause? Now that you've met the team, let's kick things off with our first segment for the last time, because, well, I said so. We received this letter from a fan via Facebook. Hello, YGen. I have a friend who sends naked selfies to boys she flirts with. I know it's becoming more and more socially acceptable these days, but I really don't know how I feel about it. Am I just being approved for not thinking it's a great idea? And if I am, what does he say about our society? Scott, with your charm, I bet you're the type of guy who's beating off women with a stick. Not really, though. How do you feel about naked selfies?
I'm beating something off with a stick. But I'm all for it. You know, we've recently seen Samsung release that 30% of photos taken on their phones are selfies, and Australia, we're #1. So, you know, we're obviously loving the selfies, so why not keep pushing it? That's what artists do. They push the boundaries, so why don't we push it?
There's a naked selfie art.
Push the boundaries by exploiting our own bodies, is that what you're trying to say?
Not exploiting our own bodies, just showing them, being free with it. Like,
But isn't doing that sort of waning, like, it doesn't have, you're not respecting your body anymore. You're sort of putting it out there for everyone to see, but it's not really a respectful form of, I guess, saying, I'm proud of who I am. Because I get the argument might be that, oh, I'm proud of myself and I'm proud of my body, so therefore I'm going to put up a naked selfie.
I think it's more...
But are you really being respectful?
What if you're in love with that person and you just want to send that person that you love a naked selfie of yourself?
Everyone?
But what if it was that scenario?
On that point, I actually had an awkward run-in with that. I'm not really familiar with how to use Instagram, and I wanted a simple, nice Valencia filter for a certain picture I took, and I clicked share thinking that it would go to my camera roll, and it didn't. And now everyone knows what Jimmy looks like.
But the ramifications of actually sending a naked selfie and putting it out there.
Personally, I think it comes down to personal discretion. If you want to put a naked selfie out there, or if you want to send it to a loved one or to your husband or to your wife or whatever the situation is, go for it if you're comfortable with it, because that's your choice completely.
You do have to be careful, though, because if you're under the age of 18 and you're sending naked selfies, that's child porn, and whoever views it can be arrested.
Then what are we doing for the younger generations? Like, I get, you know, that we're starting to, you know, mature and we see it maybe as something that we can do, but what about that 13 or 14-year-old girl who's like, well, all my friends are starting to think about sex and thinking about... Because being naked obviously has the, you know, the sexual connotation of I'm sexually maturing. Sure does. But for a 13-year-old girl, they're not even close to sexual maturation. So why are we making it okay for them?
I reckon they send more naked selfies than our age group would, seriously.
Really?
Yeah, God, they're terrible. I mean, I work with a media group, right? And they teach them about these issues. And you just take one look on their Facebook, for example, and they're all talking about, oh, yeah, send me some hot stuff, baby, all this sort of crap.
No, but why do you think that is? They're being influenced by this overall sort of, I guess, this trend in media that it's okay to be half naked.
Nudity in society as a whole has become more accepted.
Is that a good or a bad thing?
Being so religious and is becoming more secular, so...
I think when you pick up your latest issue of Cosmo or whatever that is, or whatever they are, you pick them up and you see, I don't know, a particular model of some sort who is, you know, half naked. What does that say? And that actually makes it okay for young girls to start thinking, oh, let me put up a naked selfie.
Speaking of sex, I'd like to segue into a tweet we got from @Tom44. Can friends with benefits actually work? Is it a good idea or is it destined for failure? Fingers crossed you say yes. Well, that was short and sweet, but my friends with benefits, I believe, Tom is referring to when friends take their friendship to another level, usually involving sex. But they remain friends without any romantic relationship. What do you think, Jade? Can it work?
I personally think friends with benefits can work if both parties are consenting. However, obviously there's always that emotional side and all the hormones that are released after you, like, have sex. Sorry to Google then. But
Yeah, but isn't friends with benefits? If you're going to take that next step in your friendship, isn't that dating? Aren't you in a relationship
and
then?
I will shed some light on this. Ladies and gentlemen, I have with me the 6 commandments of friends with benefits that I have drawn up for you today. Number 1, thou shalt clearly state the intentions with the person, including the extent of emotional capacity and any pre-existing boundaries. Communication is paramount. Number 2, thou shalt not nickname their friends with benefits. Previously existing names for genitalia may still stand, particularly if your genitalia is standing. Number 3. Okay. Number 3, cuddling after sex or staying over is not mandatory. And if it is insisted from your friends with benefit, repeat the disco stew mantra. Back away, not today.
It's not allowed. Sleepovers are not allowed.
Cuddling at
Not allowed.
sleepovers, wouldn't that cause a more intimate connection?
I think the idea of friends with benefits is extremely convoluted. I think that it's one of those things, if you think about it scientifically, you're right. There's a whole bunch of hormones and everything going and working. You can't isolate that and think that the body's actually going to respond in a way that's going to allow you to go, yeah, you are my friend, but we're just sex buddies. It doesn't work like that.
It's going to eventuate and you're going to start liking the person, and that's when the problems start coming
But what
in.
if you're just not ready for a relationship? I think that's when it definitely works, when you're not emotionally available for a start.
Well, on that note, it's time to go for a break. So everybody at home, this is your chance to check your Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and squeeze in a game of Angry Birds. We'll be back here shortly. Welcome back to The White Generation. We've missed you. After talking about naked selfies and sex with your friends, the next logical conversation is breasts. We hit the streets to ask Sydney about what they think of breastfeeding in public.
Absolutely.
No,
You don't think
no,
so?
no, need privacy.
It's a thing that you have to do and you shouldn't be forced to hide when you're doing something that needs to be done.
Absolutely. It has to be done. Simple as that.
It's just a natural thing, isn't it? You know, it's a natural thing for a woman to breastfeed, like kissing in public or holding hands. It's just part of life.
They should not feed in the public because it's not exposed in the public.
No, that's weird.
It's all right to breastfeed in public.
It's natural.
So, what the heck?
Like, it's a natural thing. Flop it out and just feed the kid.
I'd rather that than a screaming child.
In public, not comfortable.
It's a natural thing.
Everyone can do what they like if they want to, if it's not harming anyone else.
Not like boobing out for the world, just under a blanket.
If it's discreet.
I think if you cover it up, you know, not just like for the general public, but for hygienic reasons, then yeah.
Yes, I do.
No.
No. I wouldn't know.
Definitely not. I'm fine with it.
If the baby's hungry, the baby's got to eat.
This is something that's been done for years. I don't see there's anything wrong with it. In my mum's generation, they did used to breastfeed in public, but with a blanket over, not sort of fully exposed.
Like, as long as it's not too, like, let's just have my breasts out here, then yeah, it's fine.
Breastfeeding, it's a natural thing and has a lot of health benefits for the baby, but it does seem to make some people uncomfortable. So should the mums or the embarrassed public win this one? Zara, what are your thoughts on this topic?
Definitely the mums. In an age where we have mothers feeling more and more embarrassed to try and feed their baby in public, on top of that, with children actually not being as commonly breastfed in the earlier stages of development, it means that it's a greater risk for the children, for the babies and for their development. So in my opinion, we should be encouraging mothers as much as we possibly can for them to try and actually provide that nutrition that you were talking about, Andrew, so that their babies actually develop as they should.
We saw in the package that people wanted this to be discreet. Did you guys think that has to be discreet?
I don't personally think it's a problem. I mean, I was given these 2 boobs and I'm going to use them when the time comes, you know what I mean? Like, yeah. So.
I'm a big fan for the discretion thing, purely because...
Because it makes you feel uncomfortable?
No, I can't whip out my penis in public and not be charged for it. When women can pull out their boob and go... "Mwah," and not have any problems. It's just not fair. We want equality. How about we have equality?
Were you breastfed?
I don't remember.
Yeah, maybe you should go home and ask your mum that.
I don't want to ever picture that.
James, what do you think?
I don't think there's any issue on it, provided that the baby itself is the one sucking on it in public. I've seen me, myself and Irene, and that, yeah, that looked a bit fun. But, no, seriously, I think, look, there was that lady on X Factor not long ago that she was in the green room breastfeeding. When you have to do it, you have to do it.
I saw
and you
that.
can't deprive your child of nutrition.
And we have to encourage mothers.
Yeah, it's a bond between mother and baby.
But do you think maybe sometimes mothers take advantage of that?
Why?
In what regard?
I don't know.
In what regard? Like,
I don't
how
know.
can you take advantage of the natural process of motherhood?
Right.
How can you?
How can you take advantage of breastfeeding your child in public? Like,
I don't know.
I don't think
Hey,
that's a
take
thing.
a look at my breasts. Is that what you're referring to?
Possibly.
Yeah, what if
That's
they're
not-
milk?
Not all mothers are A+ mothers.
Well,
Whoa,
exactly. So we
whoa.
have to encourage them.
Yeah,
we have
right.
to encourage them. If we're sitting here and going, oh, no, please put it away, then those mothers who still are, like, quivering at the notion of having a baby in their arms are actually going to be like, oh, well, it's wrong. I better not do it at all. That's it. You need to try and encourage them.
Yeah, and secondly, mothers aren't really there to be an exhibitionist. If they need to feed their child, it's not really their main prerogative to go, yeah, how you like some of that, big boys?
They're more concerned about the fact that the baby in front of them needs nutrition.
What if you're at a milk bar and you're just sitting down innocently to get a vanilla malt milkshake and a woman comes in next to you and starts breastfeeding and you just go, that's a waste of $5. Walk out.
So a woman breastfeeding makes you feel uncomfortable then?
I'm just saying it should be discreet.
Scott, in that situation, I'd be more upset if she was behind the counter and I didn't know what milk was in my shake.
Into the milkshake.
I think we better leave it there. Now it's time for another break. But while we're gone, how about you tell us how you feel about breastfeeding in public? Are you yay or nay? Tweet us with the hashtag YGenTV and let us know. We'll be back here shortly with the last segment for the season. Welcome back to the Y Generation. We've had our fun, but now it's time to get a little serious. We've got a sensitive topic here that people tend to have very strong views about. Abortion has been a controversial subject in many societies through history because of the moral, ethical, practical and political issues that surround it. However, abortions in Australia are a subject of state law rather than national law. James, what do you think? Should abortions be a right for everyone?
They 100% should be a right for everyone. And that basically comes down to pro-choice of your own body and the life within it. In particular, I'd like to raise a point for if, for example, you know, you've been raped or something. Do you really want to keep that child? I mean, I know that's a hard thing to ask straight up, but for a start, that'll serve as a constant reminder to the incident that's happened, and that could scar both you and the child for the rest of your lives. That's something that definitely needs to be taken into consideration and in general. I mean, if the opportunity is there and something has drastically gone wrong, whether it's rape or not, you should have that option available to you.
Well, should abortions be used as a form of contraceptive?
I definitely think they shouldn't be used as a form of contraceptive. I think that's taking advantage of a right that we've been given here in Australia.
That's right.
I think worldwide it's something between 40 and 50 million abortions a year, and I think that's...
But why is
kind
an
of
abortion such a
disgusting.
bad stigma to have? Because we can't support the child that's coming into this
Physically
earth.
and actually, like health-wise, it's actually not good for you to get abortions. So if you're using it as a contraceptive, that could seriously affect your uterus and maybe stop you from having a baby when you're ready to have a baby.
Right.
So in terms of the whole health aspect, then there's issues there. But I think definitely if there's like a teenage girl or a person that's not economically well off, then they should have the choice, yeah.
At the same time, if you're going to go ahead and have sex, you've got to be prepared to face the consequences, which are pregnancies. I mean, you don't want to be the person that's... I don't want to be the person that says take the easy way out of a pregnancy.
But is abortions really an easy way out?
Well, that's why we shouldn't have it. If we don't have euthanasia, we can't kill old people because they're suffering with cancer. How can we support killing something that's not even had a chance to live
That's
yet?
a life that's progressed. This is a life that's about to begin. And if you want...
But is it a life yet?
Is it a life yet? Well, there's a specific sort of parameter, I guess, after about 11 or 12 weeks where the baby is then considered to be, you know, sort of fully functioning baby that's actually now just growing, as opposed to multiplying as like a bunch of cells.
Yeah,
but in that situation, you raised euthanasia. This is a child that's about to be brought into the world. And if you want that child to have a good life, then that's where the idea of pro-choice really needs to come in.
Well, it's a delicate one, and as you can see, we as the Y Generation really take abortion seriously here. This is the final question for the season. So let's go out with a bang. Like it or not, Western Sydney has a bad reputation. Often the first image that springs to mind when suggesting names like Parramatta, Granville and Wentworthville is hooded knife-wielding gangs, Commodore-driving hoons and heroin-addicted degenerates lining the pavements of our suburbs. While some of this may be true, to an extent, there are good and bad areas everywhere in Sydney. Where do you guys think this bad press comes from and how can we change it?
I just get so angry when people put stigmas on Western Sydney. I've been to the city before and people are like, where are you from? And I'm like, hey, Blacktown. And then they walk away. It's like, oh, I'm sorry.
That's because you're holding a gun up.
I wasn't going to have a knife and shank you or anything. Like, I'm from Blacktown. No, like, oh, it's just, it makes me so angry and it really infuriates me.
Where did this come from, Scott?
I have to
Where do you
say,
think it came
I
from?
grew up in the country, in the middle of nowhere, and I've moved to Western Sydney, and when I moved, I was quite afraid. You know, you only ever see on the news reports, you know, shooting in Western Sydney. Then you find out it's actually the inner west of Sydney and it's nowhere near out into the outer west. But, you know, if you don't know Sydney very well, you think all of Western Sydney is going to be shit.
So where does that come from, though? Do we get that from the media?
I feel like definitely from the media. Definitely how the Western Sydney is portrayed actually does stem from the media. But a lot of it has to do with the fact that we have to face it, the Greater Western Sydney region is a lower socioeconomic area. They're not as well off as the northern suburbs or the eastern suburbs, and that is obviously the crux of the issue. It's the crux of the problem.
Well, there is a gang culture as well. If you want to look for a particular region that actually has, you know, gang activity and all that sort of stuff, you've got lots of lads around here and on top of that, media thing as well.
Who aren't supported financially that well off from the government anyway.
And like on top of the media thing, you also look at characters like Trent from Punchy and the Siggy Butt Brain people. That does nothing to help improve the area.
Absolutely.
But at
and
the same
personally,
time,
that's got nothing to do with me.
How do we change this, though? Do we share the wealth around? What do we do?
You're not going to change the situation at all. Crime happens everywhere, and I've lived in a few countries.
That's a
and
really bleak view. You're just not going to change the situation at all. Let's leave it.
Everywhere, you know,
fix itself out.
And there's always going to be bad areas. But, you know, you look at the statistics and, you know, drugs is a very big thing in Western Sydney, supposedly. But Bondi Junction is actually the drug capital of Australia. That is where you're going to find the most drugs, and that's eastern suburbs. So it's always going to be a stigmatism because the media is so it's easy to report on the bad stuff out here.
But it's one thing to have like a drug culture and it's another thing to have like a thug sort of culture. That's unfortunately what Western Sydney has. It doesn't necessarily have the drug stigma.
Yeah,
that's more like
it's the idea that they're all walking around together and not actually. I think when you said that there's nothing, we can do something about it. We need to get the government to start supporting the Western Sydney area a little bit more.
They actually have implemented the Fair Go for the West thing, which personally I think kind of identifies our problems more than it's like Fair Go for the West. It's
at the same time,
it's what's wrong with us? Why do we need a fair go?
Exactly.
It's like a troubled kid at school, you know, the one that doesn't want to learn, the one that's always going to be sitting at the back of the class. I was one of those people, throwing shit at other people. You're not going to help them. They don't want to be helped.
Are you serious right now?
I disagree. In particular, the ones that do, they end up moving to, say, the city and stuff. Like, my cousins are from Narellan, and they've both now moved into the city. And in their words, it's a completely different environment.
I think we've got to stop that one there. Well, sadly, that's all we have time for. That's it for Season 2 of The Y Generation. I'd like to thank my panellists. Let's give them a round of applause. The Y Generation will be back next year, and we hope to see you all again. Until then, make sure to follow us on Facebook and Twitter to help pass the time. I'm your host, Andrew Olivares. Thank you, and good night.
The who generation? The why? Sorry.
Shane, I think you'll have to disagree.
Being a HR manager, you gotta keep. Oh, sorry.
Oh, yeah, the
The why generation? The what generation? Oh, God.
The what generation? How come we gotta lie awake and talk to you guys after we're done?
We have Emily, a smart cookie who's studying law and communications.
Yeah, the
why?
Some great points made there, guys. Good job. Well, I hope you enjoy.
What? Good job. Join us this week on The Y Generation. That was really angry.
The what generation?
We were in a long-term relationship for about 15 months.
Were you watching too much porn?
No, we will
I know I personally wouldn't want to be leashed, at least not in public. Personally, maybe in private. Michelle, what do you think?
I like long walks on the beach too.
I personally don't think right now your beard is like totally clean and effective.
It's not turning her on.
Sorry.
And that wraps up this episode for the Y generation. But if there's something that you've...
The who generation? The what generation? The Y generation.